My guest today is David Fallarme. Dave is one of the most experienced marketing leaders that I personally know of. He used to do marketing at a number of different companies, including Hubspot, On Deck, and Referral Candy. Most recently, he had a year-long stint as a fractional CMO before eventually joining Owner as their VP of Marketing. I always enjoy talking to Dave about all things marketing, and this time was no exception. We talked about his experience as a fractional CMO, the challenges of building and managing teams, and the usefulness of different marketing philosophies. So listen in, and I'm sure you'll learn something from Dave, just like I did. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Soulo, and you're listening to Ahrefs Podcast.
Ahrefs Podcast.
I'm not a professional podcast host, so I'm terrible, especially at starting and finishing those things. They're usually awkward.
The magic of editing.
No, I think we can actually leave some of those things, kind of counterintuitive ways to start a podcast. But yeah, thanks for coming to Ahrefs Podcast, David. But by the way, what's like the go-to version of your name that everyone uses, Dave or David?
It depends. So I like to do it so that it depends on how many Davids there are in the group. I always like to be the easy. Yeah. So if there's already a David there, I'll go Dave. If there's a Dave, I'll go David.
Okay. So when we were digging a little bit, doing some research on you, or like rather our team, or rather Michelle, I actually learned quite a few things that I didn't know. So your background in regards to where you worked is quite significant. So it seems that you have worked for United Way, Hershey, Toyota Motor Manufacturing, Brookstone, App Annie, Pi.co, Referral Candy, HubSpot, On Deck, before you went to fractional CMO, and now finally Owner.
Yes. Thank you for reading my LinkedIn.
Yeah, how many jobs did you have? Like in
a
your
lot.
career?
That's not even all of them. Because before, that's yes. There's a bunch of jobs in my history that are not on there. I've just done a lot of stuff, I guess. Side projects.
Oh my God.
Too.
What's your longest and shortest stint as kind of an employee?
Probably HubSpot, which was just over 4 years.
That's the longest. What about the shortest ones?
The shortest. I worked for a Chinese manufacturing company.
Okay.
For 2 months, I got fired because it was, yeah, I can get into that if you want, but that's probably the shortest.
We have a note about that where you went from being a marketing intern in Canada to head of marketing for a boutique consulting firm in China. But
yes.
you said China manufacturing, so that's a different thing.
Yeah, so after my internships in Canada, the United Way, Toyotas, and Hershey's, I went to teach English in South Korea. And after that, I was like, I don't want to be a teacher, but I want to stay in Asia. Oh, like something is happening with China, let me understand. So I did a very dumb, like 20-something, no plan, no future planning move. It just went there with no network, didn't speak the language. Somehow found a job at a Chinese manufacturing company as an international marketer, whatever that meant. But then I was like terrible. The company was bad. I ended up getting fired. And then I networked my way into that company, Brookstone, which was a little bit of another dumpster fire, but that's for another podcast.
Okay. So the topic that I'm personally quite interested to dig into is the thing that you did before joining Owner, which is being a fractional CMO. So you're quite active on LinkedIn, so you have a post about it, where you say that fractional person is embedded in your team. So they're in Slack, they manage team members, they help with hiring, they're hands-on to solve major questions, like do we have the right GTM, go-to-market? And we'll talk about go-to-market because I have no idea what that means, as usual. And bring clarity to hairy situations. Do we need to make team changes, etc.? And then if you need someone for specific needs, that's called a consultant. And then if you need kind of someone to mentor and coach you, that's an advisor. So you were specifically a fractional CMO, but I would imagine that you did a little bit of everything.
I was doing all of those things, yes. It depended because I would meet with companies that didn't need a full-time fractional CMO, but they just needed somebody to sanity check what was going on with their strategy, or hey, I have this junior team member, I don't want them to leave. Can you please just stay aboard and be their mentor. I'm not a marketing person. I need somebody with experience to coach them.
How did you get clients for this?
All
It
LinkedIn.
was all inbound, right? So
All inbound. I
you
was very
never
lucky.
approached. Okay, so all
Yeah.
LinkedIn.
All
Where
LinkedIn and
you
previous network.
all LinkedIn and previous network. But did you you openly announce that you are, I don't know, fractional CMO? You're open
No,
for consulting, advisory? No,
no. So I
people
got
just
laid
approach you.
off. I got laid off from On Deck. It was
Yeah.
part of the whole tech crazy wave. And then I did a post, which I had to take down for another. I'll give that story at another time. I had to take it down because it went super viral, and I didn't want 800,000 people to know that I got laid off. But anyway,
Oh,
in that, yeah, it went super viral. It was kind of crazy. And in that post, I said, "Hey, I'm gonna take some time off, but if I could help out in some consulting or whatever, hit me up." And then I ended up with like 30 DMs and 30 emails just from that LinkedIn post, and that helped me kickstart a lot of my fractional work. Because once you get to a couple of people under your belt working with you, there's a flywheel effect of referral. You can ask people to talk to them as a testimonial. So I was very fortunate in that I was early in the tech layoffs because then it was still like a fresh news thing. People were still hitting like on, oh my God, I got laid off posts. And that was very helpful in kickstarting my fractional journey.
but if I remember correctly, because we've known each other for quite a while, basically
Mm-hmm.
you one of the first people I met when I came to Singapore 8 years
Mm-hmm.
ago, but now you're in New York, no longer in Singapore. So yeah, I've known you for quite a while, and if I remember correctly, you started to publish content on LinkedIn even before you went fractional.
Yes.
So you had this community basically from 8 years ago. You started it maybe even earlier of APAC marketers.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, you you were publishing content on your blog,
Mm-hmm.
and you were also doing some social media. And I believe you were always more active on LinkedIn rather than, I don't know, Twitter or Instagram.
Yeah. Yeah. I
So
couldn't get
LinkedIn,
Twitter to work. This LinkedIn just maps to my brain better. So I've invested
okay.
in LinkedIn.
So the reason why I'm asking this is because you were kind of out there all this time. So
Okay.
did you have leads for consulting, for like fractional CMO thing, for mentorship before you announced that
Yeah.
you were laid off and this went
Every now and
viral?
then, yes. Every now and then somebody would say, "Hey, I like the stuff that you're writing. Would you come and either like coach some of my junior team members on how to do writing?" And the more senior I got in my career, those requests changed to, "Hey, do you do like freelance strategy stuff?" So one of the superpowers that I have, or I would say superpowers, one of the things that I'm lucky that I did was I just always was posting, and I didn't do that
Mm.
for any monetization or any purpose of building a pipeline. I enjoy doing that. Even now, I don't need any inbound for a fractional consulting because I have a job. I still enjoy posting because I have this body of work online. Then I was getting inbound for people who agreed with the way I thought or liked the way I thought. And so that was happening before I formally became a freelance person.
But did you change anything in your approach when you were laid off? And I believe you weren't looking to go in-house immediately, so you
Mhm.
actually consciously wanted to try
Yes.
doing the fractional thing. So did you change anything in your approach to getting yourself out there in order to get leads?
There's a few things that I did. I don't know, because the way that inbound works is you don't really know which thing is working. You just do a bunch of stuff. And the output is you get more DMs in your inbox, you get emails, you get intro to people. So I did change a few things. I'm hesitant to say which was the most impactful, but I changed my content calendar a little bit. So instead of posting about generic marketing things, I made it so that my ICP, my target audience, was a founder who was frustrated with their marketing. And so you can
Mm.
see this very clear shift in the stuff I was posting about pre-layoff and post-layoff. Pre-layoff, it's like the things that I'm learning as a marketer, and I'm speaking to other marketers. Once I made that shift and I knew what my target audience was, it's like, these are the reasons you fire your head of marketing, or these are the things you need to be doing when you just raised your Series A, and here's how to do marketing. So I think that helped a bit, but it's also that even if I wasn't posting about those things, just the fact that I was posting and people knew that I was in fractional, doing fractional work, I think activated my warm connections in my previous network, my previous alumni from HubSpot and other companies, that I would stay top of mind. So when they would find somebody in their network that had consulting needs, they would think of me. So I did change a bunch of stuff. I don't know which one was effective, whether it even made a difference, but At least I was intentional in the kinds of content I was creating.
That's very cool, actually. You had a very specific persona in mind who you were talking to with your
Yes,
social
marketing,
media.
right? That's the funny
Not,
thing. Like, because I talk to other fractional CMOs and other consultants, and they come to me for advice, and they're marketers, right? And they're like, "Oh, how should I do this positioning?" And I'm like, "Dude, this is the job that you would be hired to do. Just do it for yourself. Like, who's the target audience? What's the narrative? What's your unique positioning?" So it's interesting when you take the lens of you are the client on yourself, you find that there's a lot of obvious things that you should be doing, but it doesn't click because you have like the curse of knowledge of yourself.
yeah. Basically, the good old putting yourself in your customer's shoes. But now when you're a fractional CMO, your customer is the founder, essentially. So you
Yeah.
need to cater to them, and you need to create the kind of content and the kind of messaging that would persuade them that, oh, I would love to work with this guy. I would love to pick his brain. He seems to kind of understand my challenges. So if he understands them, then he might be able to solve them. This is very cool. How many other people kind of in your network are doing the fractional or consulting thing?
There's
Is
an
this like,
explosion of fractional CMOs now. There might be too many. Just because if you think about it, all this talent is now released into the market because of the layoffs and all this kind of stuff, right? So in the beginning, I think there was just a trickle of people. I think if you use Google Trends and type in fractional, it's like, and it's not just CMOs, it's CTOs, product managers. So it's a whole industry now of fractional folks. So it's interesting to see how it evolves. It started off with not a lot of people doing it. The word fractional specifically, there's always been marketing consultants, and you and I know a bunch of people. Technically, they're fractional, just it got renamed somehow. So they've always been around, but there's definitely more.
is there any kind of private group for fractional CMOs where you guys would exchange leads? Like, I have no bandwidth to work with the company who wants to take it. A ton?
There's a ton. There's a lot.
You're a member of not even one group like that.
I joined a couple, but then I don't know, like if you're a fractional, so I joined in the beginning because I wanted to give myself as many assets as the biggest surface area of opportunity as possible. But then I kind of reached the conclusion of if you're a fractional marketer and you need to join a community to like get leads and get referrals, you kind of fucked up somehow because it's like that's your job to like get marketing. Right, to get leads is your job for yourself. So if you can do that for yourself, why did anybody trust you? But yes, there are a lot of communities out there. I find that they're useful in the beginning stages, just for you to like feel confident and see other people who are going through the same journey. I got out of them eventually because I didn't see the value once I started understanding how the machine worked. And then, of course, you have your own private groups of people that you trust. So have a private Rolodex of, I can't take this on. I have no bandwidth. You should talk to this person. You start to build up a Rolodex of agencies and freelancers. So it's one of the reasons why I really enjoyed my fractional journey is because I feel like I leveled up in marketing so much compared to being in a company. Like the same amount of time, like 1 year at fractional and 1 year in a company, it's like night and day of how much I learned. So definitely don't regret it. Communities, debatable. I think it's useful at the beginning, but eventually you find your own pocket of people that you work with.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's a great point that, first of all, if you struggle to get your own leads, then you're definitely doing something wrong. And secondly, I would imagine no one is willing to give good leads to other people. So if it's a great company that would be a pleasure to work with, if they compensate well, you would kind of squeeze it in and find the bandwidth for it. Maybe you would like fire some of your other clients just to be able to take on this company, or just not really fire, but maybe wrap up your work with them quickly. So yeah, I would imagine that when people are sharing some leads, those are kind of secondary things. So you won't get kind of the cream of the crop
that
by
does happen.
hanging out.
But there's also creative ways around that problem. One is you would start subcontracting. So you take it on. You don't have the bandwidth, right? Let's say because you've taken on other great clients, but this amazing new client comes, you'll say yes, but then you quietly subcontract it out to other people. And then so you don't do a lot of the tactical work. The other is you find, again, a small group of trusted other fractionals. And sometimes there's referral partnership agreements where it's like, hey, you have to give me like 10% finder's fee of the final thing. And then, like you said, you might fire some of your previous clients, but then you would just like that one you'd subcontract and you would give your full attention to the new good one. So there's a lot of ways around it. It's not always like I'm going to keep it all to myself. Sometimes there's good ways to handle that.
How many clients maximum did you have at any point
At
in
one
time?
time, 4. So you mentioned how I had different tiers of engagement, right? I think of
Mhm.
them kind of like small, medium, large. Small is like we get on a couple of calls every month. I'm in your Slack and I'll reply to your emails. The medium is like I'm here, but I'm only working with 1 or 2 people in your company because it's a very defined scope. That's a medium. And then the large is like I'm essentially a part of your team. I accidentally did 2 larges at one time and I almost died because it was like
Mhm.
2 full-time jobs and you're context switching, so that was intense. But then I was able to find a good mix of like a large, a medium, and 2 smalls. And so that was just at my limit of context switching that I could do good work for everybody. But my plate was very full during that time.
So would you say that uh, fractional CMO is a scalable thing? How much of the kind of the same, I don't know, tactics, blueprints, workflows you were just copy pasting from a client to a client?
Yeah.
Or was it all like completely bespoke that you cannot really, I know, automate it in a way?
So I should caveat everything that I've said and what I'm about to say about fractional is I did it for a year. So all of my experience is just really 1 year. So I think if you talk to somebody who's 5, 7 years down the road, they might say something different. But
Oh, I
I
will.
think,
I will.
yeah, great, great, good. Like make sure that I'm not talking too much shit. I think that if you are doing it right, you eventually find your bread and butter type of client. So you can use the same types of playbooks because part of being a good fractional CMO is having a reputation in a niche so that you are the number one expert in a certain problem set. And if you take that approach, you will inevitably come to use the same kinds of tools and frameworks because you're going to see the same types of problems, and your work is more valued and more valuable as a result. It's like we're going to bring on this person. We have problem X. This person is the number one expert at solving problem X because they have XYZ toolkit. They know all the right people. They know all the right freelancers. So we're going to bring them aboard. So there's some degree of bespokeness to it because no strategy should be copied and pasted across companies. But there's definitely like laybooks or frameworks that are applicable that you have to be using because it's a similar problem set.
So what was your niche as a fractional CMO?
A company that had just raised their Series A or was in between Series A and B. There's that funding. That funding stage was a very clear differentiator because what that meant is they had reached product market fit and they were getting ready to invest in scaling and go to market, which meant that they were ready to grow their company. Like product was not the risk, and now it's audience and growth and acquisition. However, they've run into a problem. The trigger point is they've seriously considered or have just fired their head of marketing. So they have money, they have product market fit, they don't like their marketing leader, but they know they need to invest in marketing. That is a situation where I perfectly fit in because I've lived that many times in my full-time career. And I've advised companies a lot in that area. And that's what I focused on through my fractional experience.
That is very specific.
Yeah, you have to be. Otherwise, because there's so many people, there's so many marketers running around. And so that's one aspect of it. And the other is just founders don't have a lot of bandwidth. And you have to be focusing on the number one pain that they have. Because there's a lot of fractional product marketing managers, which is great. And I think it's important. But whenever I talk to them, like they have such a bitch of a time finding work because product marketing is rarely the number one problem. Like it's kind of an annoying thing. Like, oh, I hate our narrative. That's never going to be the number one pain point. Or I hate the way that this product page copywriting is not great. Like that's the kind of thing. Or our pricing is a pain, but it's so multi-stakeholder and it takes such a long time that it's very hard for somebody to slot in very quickly with a short sales cycle. I was optimizing for, I want to make sure they have product market fit because I don't want to work on anything that doesn't have that because it's a pain in the ass because I've been there. I want to make sure they have money, and I want to make sure it's a short sales cycle that I don't have to like convince them that they have to hire me. So that's how I ended up with that target audience.
In regards to they have money thingy. So you mentioned you are working with venture-backed companies.
Mm-hmm.
What about bootstrapped companies? Did anyone from bootstrap companies approach you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, my pricing table is on the website. So as long as they could as long as there was a fit there budget-wise, I worked with them. Yeah, no problem. I
So
worked
you
with a
did.
bootstrap one, worked with a PE-backed company, and I worked with VC-backed. I'll take
How
anybody's
was it?
money, Tim.
How was it different working with bootstrap companies compared to those venture-backed Series A
I
startups?
think the pace is different. Yeah, so I will say I will generalize here broadly because again, not every company is the same. But in
Hmm.
bootstrap, there's less pressure to do it quickly, and there's a bit more of like, let's get this right kind of thing.
Hmm.
The
Probably
PE,
less budget.
less budget, so it was an advisory relationship. The PE one is kind of like there's not that much money to go around. Like as in we can't invest in marketing, so you have to make sure you're focusing on the highest impact thing and do it quickly. The VC one is kind of like, okay, we're ready to invest. How do we be aggressive in a smart way? So three different very distinct flavors of how we do marketing, which is why I love that year that I was doing it because it stretched my brain in so many different ways.
So, what are some cool things that you did in this year for any of these companies that you're proud with, that you can pat yourself on the back?
Hmm. I think so. Again, the problem set is relevant to what I'm about to say, right? They're just fired their head of marketing. They need to figure out what their growth strategy is so they can invest with confidence and raise the next round. Because Series A, you're not out of the woods yet. Like you still have a
Mm.
burn rate you're thinking of. You probably need to raise money in the next 18 to 24 months. So there's a very clear goal there. And then the other thing is the founder is typically like a product person or an engineer, so they don't get marketing. So a few things I'm proud of is when I go into a company now, I can quickly identify where the waste in the system is because like I I worked with 10 companies this year, but I talked to a ton. Like just because I worked with 10, there was a ton of discovery calls, free advisory calls to see where there was a fit. And I got to a point where I could, on the call, where I'm just seeing if we should even work together, I can say, hey, that is a waste of money. Like stop doing that. And
Examples, please.
branded SEM. Everybody invest in branded SEM, which is for me the biggest scam ever. Because I mean, I think you posted about this. Like, yeah, it's just like
Yeah, we don't
I
do that.
I understand the argument. I just don't believe it. It's like, yeah, defensive. It's like, dude, the guy typed in your name. They're looking for you. Like, who cares if they go somewhere else? You're assuming. Anyway, I'm ranting. I'm preaching to the choir here. That's one. Replacing myself was another one where there's a company that really didn't know what to do with marketing. I came in, kind of righted the ship in terms of where to be investing, and then found my replacement so that now they're off riding into the sunset. Things are going very well. That's another thing I'm proud of. Another one is I came into a team where everybody was unhappy. Marketing was important, but the previous marketing person just wasn't ready for it. Like they were good 0 to 1, but not good at 1 to 10. And everybody was unhappy. Like if everybody's probably ready to quit. And then I came aboard and was able to use the strategic, uh, fixing the strategy so that everybody on the team had more structure, but also like helping them coach and understand what the career plans were in a short amount of time. That way, the company didn't have a bigger problem where they fire the head of marketing and then the entire marketing team leaves. But then making sure that who were the highest impact people on the team, how do we make them happy, how do we make them more productive, and so yeah. So let me recap there. Finding waste and spend, there's a ton of that. Usually branded SEM, but I can talk about some other ones. And then making sure that the marketing team that is already in the company is either properly resourced, as in I find a good replacement that they can run with in the future, or they're more happy than they were before I came in.
I'd love to dig into this last example with you coming to be in charge of a marketing team with a CMO being recently fired. And you said they weren't happy. They didn't have like their understanding of their careers and maybe, I don't know, inefficient or something. So
Mhm.
can you walk me through a few of the examples of the roles in this marketing team? And what exactly did you fix? Kind of some tips. So if some other marketing leader is listening to it and they don't realize that they have this problem, so can you call out the
Yeah,
actual problem and what did you do to fix it?
it's a pretty traditional B2B SaaS marketing setups like content marketing. So the playbook is um, search or social discovery, get into the website, email capture, talk to sales, that kind of thing, right? So you can imagine what the team is. I won't need to get into that. The problem is familiar to most companies who have marketing issues at this stage, which is there's no strategy. Typically, what happens from seed to Series A, maybe sometimes even seed to Series B, is you're doing everything. You are literally trying every marketing idea because you have to. It's like hand-to-hand combat. Let's run an event. Let's sponsor events. Let's get syndicated content. Let's do a blog. Let's do a pod. Like you're doing everything. And as a result, some things work and some things don't, but you don't, because you're doing things so quickly without a plan, you have no idea what to invest in. So it gets to a point where that team burns out. And when the effects of all those things eventually start to taper off, because there's diminishing returns, right? Because you're not investing properly in the high priority things. So it starts to become less fun. It starts to become more stressful. The CEO starts to be like, hey, we're planning for next year. I need predictable growth. Where should we invest? And nobody fucking knows the answer. That's the recipe for heads of marketing getting fired. And that's the recipe for the entire team to be unhappy because they feel like they've been doing everything, but they're not being rewarded or they don't see the fruits of their labor. So what I come and do is, all right, you have a certain business model, depending on your company, and the business model dictates what your marketing strategy and marketing approach should be. As an example, if your annual contract value every year, as in your software costs $1,000 a year versus your software costs $100,000 a year, how you do marketing will be very different. And those dictate what your marketing strategy should be. A lot of companies don't do that because they're doing everything. So what I do is I identify what are the guardrails of the acquisition strategies you should be doing. If you're a $1,000 a year company, you should probably be doing something around like more word of mouth, viral things at scale. If you're $100,000 a year, it's probably sales led and your marketing is really a support function to the sales team. So just using that as a way to refine and constrain all the things that they're doing gives a lot of focus to the team. And when you can give a lot of focus to the team, everybody just starts to relax. Like, okay, I don't have to do like a zillion things. I really just need to do these 3 things. And you can work with the team to identify what they personally care about, what are the things that excite them in their career. And when you do that, they start to do better work because they're personally invested in it and not just because they have to do it because they were told to. And because they're personally invested in it because it's appropriate to the size of the business and their go-to-market model, you actually start to get results again. And so the founder is happy, the CEO is happy, or the executives are happy, which means they look better on the marketing team, which gives them more resources. Everybody's happier. Then I ride off to the sunset and then find somebody to replace me, or everybody's just happy as a result.
So what are the examples of you coming in a specific marketing team and you see they are publishing 10 articles on the blog, but 8 of these articles make no sense. So you start publishing 2 because they're SEO optimized. And you, I don't know, fire someone or you refocus someone who was writing those 8 extra articles on, I don't know, doing product webinars or whatever. I want to see specifics. I understand the logic of it, but I'd love to hear some specific examples of what you came in and like the fat you trimmed and the effective things you made the team do.
Got it. So I came aboard with this company and it's a situation I described. Like we're doing a lot of stuff, but nothing is working and we don't know where to invest. We're going to let this person go. So I looked at their budget historically and I broke apart their cost per MQL, your favorite term, cost per lead across different sources, cost per customer actually across different sources. One of those sources was conferences and events. And it was something insane like $500,000 cost per customer, something ridiculous like that. And their product is like $20,000 a year. So it just didn't make any sense. And nobody looked at this. And then I realized that some other sources were much more profitable. And so just from that very basic exercise, I can be like, okay.
Which sources were more profitable?
Content.
Content.
Yeah, obviously content.
As in like SEO content or?
Yeah. Combination of social and search as the channels. So SEO maybe could be, I think of it more in terms of channels. So when you say SEO, you probably mean organic search. Yeah. If that's the case, then yes, organic search. And organic social.
Organic social. So you were tracking when people were clicking on links in Twitter, LinkedIn, coming to the website and signing up?
Yes, there's a bit more to it than that, but I will save you the attribution nightmare. But yes.
No, like you mentioned MQL. Let's dig into
Okay.
it.
Okay.
So how do you calculate
Wait, hold on.
the
Sorry, can I finish that thing? So the specific thing you asked, like what I did, right? So we
yeah.
found the waste in the budget. So paid SEM was another one that was a waste. That just didn't make any sense. It was like way outsized compared to the cost per
Yeah.
customer for the CAC. And then just from there, we were able to find out, okay, where are the most profitable sources? Therefore, let's invest in those. And then, therefore, this is what the marketing strategy should be. Therefore, this is what the team setup should be. This person
This
should
is
be focused
again,
on this.
mate, this is again generalizations.
Okay.
I want to dig in specific examples. So
Yeah.
you mentioned that you looked at the cost for acquiring customer or like cost for acquiring marketing qualified lead.
Okay.
And you what like I like the very specific example that you said from conferences it was like $500. I don't even need like the exact number of what it was.
Yeah.
But you identified that from conferences the leads were too expensive compared to any other channel. So how did that company get leads from conferences? Did they have some, I don't know, QR code that people needed to scan at their booth, or did they for example, we have quite some experience sponsoring conferences, and for example, one of the things that conferences offer to sponsors is that they give the full list of registrants with whatever information they submit about themselves when purchasing a ticket. So you can kind of figure out which of them are from the big companies, and if you're catering to enterprise, you can reach out to them, you can put them in your CRM, and this is quite trackable. So if you have a list of all attendees of the conference and you can identify which people you can go after, you can put them in your CRM, and you know how much you paid to sponsor this conference. So this is very trackable. You can see like how good you were at converting those people that you got from this conference. Now, talking about social. So first of all, you say organic social, which means that you're not spending any money on it except for the salary of the person doing it.
Yes.
So we would imagine this company had a dedicated person doing social media.
Like random people were doing it. Like, oh, we should post that. Or the CEO would post something. It's like, oh, okay, we should do that.
Okay, which means that you cannot really calculate your spend on this channel. Like if random people are doing it, you cannot really know that, okay, it's 10% of this person's salary, it's 5% of CEO's salary. You don't know. And how do you know that that social channel is driving leads? Like what attribution?
Yes, it is notoriously difficult to attribute social 100% accurately. There's some ways we figured out how to do that, which I can share later. But essentially, we saw that whenever there was a big PR event and people would post on social, we saw a corresponding spike in signups. So then we used process of elimination to be like, what caused that? Well, we did this big thing. We didn't plan to do this big LinkedIn all posting at the same time around the same topic, but it led to a spike. And so that gave us enough signal to be like, okay, LinkedIn organic social is the thing we should be investing in as opposed to expensive conferences.
What are some examples? Maybe you cannot go into like very specific things that you did for the companies, but if we can kind of generalize it a little bit for, I don't know, a typical SaaS startup, what is this PR thing that can cause a lot of buzz on social media that would result in MQLs?
Yeah, so this was before my time. This is me doing historical analysis on what worked and what didn't. So fundraising announcement was a big one. So people post on LinkedIn, and that's caused a spike. Like a big product announcement that they did, and they all happened to be posting around the same time. The actual thing isn't important. The thing that gave us the confidence, that gave me the confidence to say we should be investing in this, is whenever there was anything happening on LinkedIn that was amplified past a certain threshold, that would result in a certain number of signups that produced a much higher spike than events.
Okay, interesting. How many of the companies that you were advising to invested in SEO? I cannot not ask this question.
All of them did, except one or two where the ICP wasn't known to have their buyer's journey have search as a significant part of it.
And what was your advice in terms of their SEO strategy?
Business value, Tim. Business value, right? Business value, 3 posts. Ignore everything else.
Okay, awesome. So, like, did you find any inefficiencies in their SEO strategy? Did you do any, I don't know, keyword research for them, competitor analysis? I wonder if like there were even like simple basic things that those companies weren't doing.
This is the thing with when I talk to SEOs, like SEOs forget that most people are not SEOs. And there's a ton of basic shit that people just don't realize. Like everybody's chasing keyword volume. That's like the number one thing. Everybody does this. Like non-SEOs do this all the time because there's a pressure to report on your metrics. And so just the natural outgrowth of that one thing leads to chasing keywords as opposed to chasing business value. Like, what do you mean you're going to go after this thing that has 100 searches per month? Like, if you don't do SEO and talk about it on a daily basis, that's a hard thing to justify. Especially if you're a medium, early in your career marketer and you're telling that to your CEO. It's like, what do you mean? Like, why would we do this? No, go for like 10,000 because, you know, we only need like 0.05% of them. Like, that's the logic, right? That's the number one thing everybody does this mistake. Not beyond that, I think it's like, yeah, there's improvements, but this is the number one thing.
Just to add a bit of context to this, because you mentioned Business Potential 3, so maybe some of the listeners don't know it, even though I was banging this drum for quite a few years. Basically, at Ahrefs, we developed this kind of, I don't know, metric, framework, whatever you call it, where we don't care about those things like TOFU, MOFU, BOFU, whether it's top of the funnel, bottom of the funnel, because we think there is a way to kind of promote and sell your product even if it is like top of the funnel content, because a good salesman can still sell you something when you start talking to them. They can walk you through the whole funnel. So we came up with this framework where this score from 0 to 3 identifies how easy for us it would be to pitch our product and persuade someone to buy it. So for example, if you're looking in Google for something like how to look up my competitors' backlinks, that's a business potential of 3 for Ahrefs, because there's no way to look up competitors' backlinks unless you have an access to a tool like Ahrefs. But if someone is looking for marketing tips, that's a business potential of 1, because marketing is very broad, and like you can buy billboards or you can do SEO. So we can talk about SEO, we can mention Ahrefs, but if people are looking for marketing tips, the chances that we would be able to get them interested in Ahrefs are slim, but we can and should still mention it. We should try to promote it, but the chances of them converting are not as high. So yeah, I think it is a very important concept. This is why I keep banging this drum. There was a nice quote, something along the lines of everything important has already been said, but because no one was listening, it makes sense to say it again. So,
one thing that will make you happy, Tim. So I'm interviewing right now for head of content for owner. And I ask a question, something like, how would you improve our blog? And almost everybody says the business value, business potential thing. So that's like, hats off to you for, incepting this concept. Everybody sends me that screenshot. That
I got goosebumps. I got goosebumps.
Dude, you did that. Changing lives out here. You're changing lives, Tim.
Awesome. Maybe it could be at least one thing that I can claim like for myself. Okay, another thing I like. So yeah, this was pretty interesting. So I'm totally with you about the branded paid traffic. How did you call it?
Branded search, branded SEM.
Kind of like this. Anyway, so yeah, I agree with you on that, and I obviously clearly understand how to improve someone's blog, how to improve someone's content marketing, and which things to focus on. Maybe you can mention any other areas where companies just don't get it, might do it wrong, and you easily kind of identify, okay, this needs to be fixed. It's like super obvious.
Yeah, so low-hanging fruit, things I always look for. Branded SEM, you should probably just cut that. It's going to go straight to direct search 80 to 90 to 100% of the time. Look at all your marketing channels and compare where your investment is versus where you're getting results. it sounds kind of obvious saying it out loud, but you'd be surprised how few companies do this calculation. And the other thing that I would say is look through your customer journey and go from like work backwards from the point of purchase. And then you're going to find all these like gaps of where you need to be creating content, or you need to have some kind of experience. So there's probably one of the things I love doing is like adding a pricing page.
Mm-mm.
For some strange reason, people don't put pricing pages. Yeah, like that's one of
Okay.
the first things I did at Owner. It's like, hey, we don't have a pricing page. And I added it. It's like, oh yes, because people were Googling it already. You can see it in the autocomplete. So pricing page is a big one. Again, like outside of SEO, Tim, like a lot of these things are not
Uh,
obvious.
I would never ask you this question. I would never even think that people don't have a pricing page.
Yeah, I know. It's a
It's
wild world out there. Once you get outside the digital marketing SEO world, it's like, oh, there's a lot of people who just I'm not saying they're dumb. It's just that their brain doesn't work the same way. It has not been trained the same way as people who think about this nerdily and come up with frameworks like Business Potential 3 and my go-to-market stuff.
yeah.
That's why they hire us, right? That's why they listen to this podcast and want to learn from you, is because things that are obvious to us are not obvious to them. And similarly, things that are obvious to them are not obvious to us.
Yeah, like in terms of pricing page, my philosophy is that all the information that you can put out there about your product for people kind of to educate themselves and to find and to answer any concerns or questions they might have, all of it should be there. So the other day I met a guy, the founder of Banner Bear, Jong Yongfook. If I pronounce his name correctly, he's
Yeah.
quite active on Twitter in the indie hackers community. He's from Singapore, so he was visiting, and whenever like we had a coffee and we were sharing with each other our experiences, like building and marketing stuff. I told him, dude, you have to create tutorials about using your product. Like he was asking me about content marketing, what kind of content I should create. I said, man, first and foremost, like people don't know how to use your product, and many of them won't educate themselves. They won't figure it out. And if you or your team won't create these tutorials for them, they might not end up using your product. So he took my advice. He went ahead and published quite a few tutorials. One of them was how to create automated social images in WordPress. You know, when you publish an article and there's an image that automatically gets appended whenever you share it on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, this kind of cover image, OG image, or whatever you call it. And we were at a point with our blog where we once created all those images manually. We had an illustrator doing an illustration for every single article, and that was dragging our publishing dates quite a bit, because the article is ready to be published, but then an illustrator needs to create an illustration, and then we need to approve it, and then we need to upload it. Lots of bells and whistles. So we thought maybe illustrations are not that important. Maybe the publishing cadence should be faster. And we decided to use his product to auto-generate those images and reassign our illustrator to doing some other fun things, like the children's book that we just published. I'm not sure if you saw that or not. So what I did is I found an article on his blog where he was explaining step by step how to hook up his product to WordPress, which like buttons to click and which fields to fill in, how to customize it with your fonts. I just sent it to our designers and they implemented it super easy. And they also said, oh, it's quite cool that he has this step-by-step tutorial. I spent as little amount of my time as possible figuring it out. It was so straightforward. So yeah, whenever you tell me that people didn't even have the pricing page to give their prospects an idea of, yeah, like there's this thing where companies that work with enterprises, they want to hide their prices because they want to talk to the company to gauge like what kind of resources they have and to squeeze as much money as they can from them. But usually when
Tim, I'll steel man the other side of that.
Yeah.
Some enterprises, the product is so customizable that it's actually irresponsible to give a price, because you'll just confuse the person and you actually need more information from their side. However, that is not most companies. Most companies want to be like, oh, like I'm just not confident to put this out there. And I feel like I need to, I don't have a standardized pricing because my salespeople make it up every time. Or B, I'm afraid that people will be scared off and they won't become a lead.
Yeah,
There's a
yeah,
legit reason for it, but like you said, just again put
absolutely,
it on the yeah.
absolutely. And for example, with us, this year we had this transition from our old and pretty simple pricing to usage-based pricing, where we both had differentiation between the features that we have on different plans, and we have usage credits, and we also have user seats, and we have two types of user seats. Like, it's quite complicated compared to what we had, because originally we had 99, 199, 399, 1,000. That's all it was. But obviously it didn't allow us to scale as much as we could, because different people need different needs. And like you said, with enterprise companies, they want customized things and they have different teams, different needs. So when we changed that, we realized how hard it is to educate even your audience, let alone people who are just in the market for kind of a product like yours, but your own audience, people who are already using you, how hard it is to educate them, even on things that it's not that complicated. So you can figure it out like in 20 minutes if you just allocate 20 minutes.
It's a long time, dude.
Well, yeah, true. In today's world, that's a lot of time. So again, since you're speaking of the pricing page, we realized that all the kind of layout and how we try to organize it and hints that we wanted to add to explain how things work, it was not enough. So I suggested, let's actually add a video explanation, where like a 3-minute video where we would walk them through. These are the kinds of users that we have. This is how usage-based pricing works. This is what we charge credits for. This is what we don't charge credits for. And we put a rather prominent link on the pricing page, right at the credits section to this video. And it is getting like hundreds and hundreds of views per week. So people are clicking it. People are trying to figure it out. And we can see that it was kind of an oversight on our part that we didn't do this from the start. We should have provided even more ways for people, because we have help articles, we posted tweets, we sent emails, we published blog articles. It's not enough. So
yes,
another concept that I will probably be trying to promote in the coming years has the tentative title of firing all cannons. Because what I'm figuring out is that whatever message you have, it's not enough to say it once. It's not enough to say it twice. It's not enough to say it 3 times. You have to fire all cannons all the time. You have to do webinars. You have to do meetups. You have to do in-person talks. You have to post it on Twitter. You have to send. So if you have an important piece of information, there's no single good way to reach even your own audience, let alone like a larger amount of customers. So yeah, sorry, I am going on a tangent this time, but I think it is, for me, it is a big revelation that companies might not have a pricing page, or the information there might not be well laid out.
Yeah.
Got any more interesting examples like that?
So low-hanging fruit, right? Always start from the point of purchase and then work backwards and just plug all those gaps. One thing that's a really easy one, especially if you have a sales-led motion, is adding an instant meeting booker. Like fill in the demo form, then instead of like, hey, our team will get back to you, like allow them to pick a time. I did that at one company and it increased the demos by like 20%, like almost overnight, just because it makes sense, right? It's like instead of waiting for an email, I can book right then. I don't have to think of a calendar or whatever. So just from those, somebody can actually already start a fractional consulting business, remove branded SEM. So you're going to say you're going to pay for yourself and like actually way more than that. You're going to justify your expenses right there. Compare where the investment's going versus what is driving customer growth. That's another huge one. Add missing pages to the website, like pricing is a number one thing. And the fourth one is make sure there's a demo instant meeting scheduler. You'll be a hero if you implement those 4 things. Like they'll not want you to leave, and they will like recommend you to all their friends. Just do those 4 things. There's a list of other things, but that's plenty for the low-hanging fruit.
Okay, cool. Before we go into discussing owner, I want to talk about your side projects. So you posted on LinkedIn a very nice list, a spreadsheet from year 2008 up until today. So you had a marketing blog where you lost to 2.5 thousand. You did iPhone games where you lost 10,000. I
Yeah.
didn't know that
Wait,
you
is
had.
that lost? That's not lost, dude. That's like made.
It says made money minus. Sorry, it's not minus. It's approximately.
Yeah.
I thought it was
Like,
minuses.
lose money.
It would be so fun if you were actually losing money on those things. I mean, okay. So marketing blog made 2.5. I'm sorry,
Yeah,
2.5k.
that's all right.
Then 10k on iPhone games, and there's
Yeah.
like an interesting mention that One Direction sent you a cease and desist. So we'll definitely talk about that. Growth hacking newsletter, marketing meetups, food blog, featured in Women's Health. I didn't know you had the food blog. APAC Marketers Community made you $7,000. Not bad. APAC Marketing Blog. Well, those things are kind of related, I would think. Podcast. Are you still running a podcast?
No, this was for the APAC thing, but I took it down.
So like those three, APAC Marketing Community, blog, and podcast, are kind of same things, but just different projects within the same umbrella. Then you went fractional, and then you have two things that you didn't disclose. Will you disclose
Yes.
at least one of them right now?
I mean, I was going to do them if I didn't get a job. Isn't it? It's on
Okay.
there, right? I was going to do something with AI, and
It
I was going to
says
do an e-commerce.
unnamed AI project and
Yeah.
unnamed B2C project.
Yes. Yes. I was going to do them, but I ended up getting a job. So TBD.
So can you name any of them, or like?
Yeah, I mean, it's not crazy. I was basically going to recreate my iPhone games
Mm.
using ChatGPT. So the way I made those iPhone games is I hired freelancers off Upwork
Yeah.
and made them. But I'm just wondering, can I make them one-page websites like Wordle now? Just using ChatGPT, like, hey, can you recreate this thing? Because
So
that was the
having
project.
it code those things for you.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, and some
Okay.
of them were picture games. And so instead of me having to source photos off Dreams Time, it's just like
Yeah.
Dolly would do them.
Yeah. So with iPhone games, it was 2012. How many did you launch?
I had like 4 or 5.
What kind of games were
They were like
those?
really shitty little games. It was just, I don't even know why I did them, but it was fun. So let me take you back to 2012.
Yeah.
Everybody had shitty apps. Okay, so before I tell you what I'm about to tell you, all the apps were shitty. Like Evernote was bare, like that was the app, Evernote. And you open Evernote now, you want to cry. So just
Yeah.
again, let's lower the expectations of what I'm about to tell you, okay? The One Direction cease and desist was I made a One Direction spot the difference game. So I got, again, another freelancer to download a bunch of One Direction pictures and then like
Okay.
Photoshop really minor differences between the two photos. And then like it was like 30 levels or something. And then
Oh.
very easy for the first 5, like obvious, like the guy's hair is different.
Yeah.
Or he's like he's like not wearing a shirt or something. And then I would make it extremely hard, level 6 through 10, and then charge you for like reveals. I was like, oh, I need to know. I need to know how to solve this level. $3. Yeah, so I did that. That worked very well.
Charge for reveals.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, this is so fun. I'm
Yep,
literally crying. Charge
so
for
good.
reveals.
And then I did
The first thing I thought of, I'm sorry I will interrupt, but this is very relevant. The first thing I thought of is that Lady Gaga would be a good candidate with her crazy outfits.
Oh yeah.
It would be so easy to put things there that people won't even notice. Like, I mean, a meat dress or something. Like,
Yeah.
it's crazy. And the
Oh,
second
funny.
thing that I was thinking of, I think there was a story of, is there a book like Where's Wally or something?
Mhm. Where's Waldo?
Where's Waldo? Yeah, so there's
Yeah.
this book, and I think there was a story where some guy went to a library. He took this book, he kind of scanned it, took out Waldo from all the pages, he kind of reprinted it and returned it back to
Oh
the
my
library.
God.
Basically,
It's amazing. Trolling is a art. Yes.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's a true story or if it's just like something was made
Yeah,
up by sites like BuzzFeed to get views or something, which is quite plausible, but it's quite similar.
that's
Okay,
amazing.
what about other apps?
I mean, similar quality level. So I would uh, take photos of NBA players
Mhm.
and then, like, Hangman,
No.
kind of like a bunch of, you have to guess their name, and then you have to like,
Ah.
yeah, it's like that. And so I also got a cease and desist from the NBA because they're probably like, why are you using our copyrighted material? And then I had a game where you had to guess phonetically what the answer was using pictures.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Okay,
they're
kind
like
of like
word
riddles
puzzles.
or something.
Yes, yes. But the One
I
Direction one was
really
the most
like
successful.
I really like those kinds of fun projects, and as a marketer, I often get bored kind of doing
Hmm.
the same things like product marketing. We need to like do webinars about our product. We need to
Yeah,
do like feature releases. We need to post content about the problems that people have.
yeah.
We need to like explain our pricing page better. Those things are not very fun. They're not very inspiring most of the time.
Hmm.
So I personally always try to kind of make my work uh, more interesting in a way, like
Yeah,
add
I get
some
it.
variety to it,
Yeah.
which is why like last April Fool's Day we created this kind of fake NFT collection of backlinks, and we said that Ahrefs is now selling backlinks. Then this year we published this children's book with like a fun story
Nice.
about a little girl climbing the Mount Fugal. Uh, so like, and you clearly have uh, uh, you clearly like doing things like that because you did those apps. They were quite funny, quite creative.
Mm.
How often do you get a chance to do something like that for marketing of tech companies?
Like inside a project, would you
Yeah,
do something like that?
yeah.
I think, well, you and I define fun differently. I think
Mm-hmm.
your version of fun is like, let's do something that nobody else is doing and
Mm-hmm.
let's make it creative. My
Mm-hmm.
version of fun, which sounds nerdier now that I'm saying it out loud compared to what you just said, is like solving the problem and getting the result that people want to get. Like, so for me, when I think of something that's fun, it's like, oh, I solved that problem that people couldn't solve. And I did it in a boring way, but I solved the problem. Like for me, that's fun.
But you did create those apps
Yeah,
that were.
because there's like, 'cause who cares? But if I'm doing it for like a client, it's going to be harder to do something that's creatively risky like that unless that was the way to achieve the result.
Maybe it also the maybe that also depends on where the company is, what stage they're at. Because if you're really coming to companies and they don't have a pricing page, they cannot figure out their content strategy, or they're overspending on the events without understanding how good those leads convert. Probably you don't even have time to
Mm,
think of
no, I
creative
don't.
ways.
Tim, I think one of the great planetary alignment moments in marketing history is that you ended up at Ahrefs and you have this crazy creative control and you know what you're doing, so you can keep
Yeah.
doing it. Like it's very rare the opportunity that you have, and because you know what you're doing and you can spend the money and it's a creative streak to you. Because even at later stage companies, when I talk to even the marketing leaders there, like they can't do what you're doing. So there's something to the culture as well, in addition to the stage. Like yes, because I think earlier stage companies in theory should be doing wilder stuff because they have less to lose and they have to
Mm,
stand out more.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's not just that. I think it's like you have a very unique opportunity and it's awesome that we all get to see what you're trying to do.
Yeah, it's interesting, but again, I've been with Ahrefs for 8 years. And now that I think about it, my first years were quite similar to what you're describing because even our homepage didn't have enough good
Mm,
information for people to make a decision. We didn't have lots of pages to describe our products and features well. So, kind of all that boring stuff. Our blog was like didn't have a strategy, so we had a bunch of freelancers essentially writing whatever they would offer. I want to write about this, sure, go ahead. We need articles. Like, why do we need articles? What are those articles doing? So yeah, I guess my early years at Ahrefs were pretty much the same, and I don't remember doing kind of a lot of fun stuff. But as we matured and as those channels are working pretty nice for them, we still have quite a few ideas and goals of how we should enhance and improve our content strategy. But for example, YouTube, for us, we also recently figured out a new strategy, and we have kind of a wave of kind of next level content coming. So we kind of even have room to do like a little bit of fun project here and there. So
what is that new strategy? I have to ask.
The new strategy on YouTube?
Yeah.
Basically, in a way, we are applying some of the conventional YouTube tactics, like what Mr. Beast is doing. If you would analyze why his videos go viral, there's kind of like science, or maybe rather, should I say, logic to it, the things that he's doing to make his videos go viral. Plus, there's a guy who's also, I think he's an ex-Vice employee, Johnny Harris. I was just as I was driving to the office, I was listening to a video of Johnny Harris about supplements. So he's kind of like investigative journalist, but he manages to put his content, wrap it in kind of in a story. So he's a good storyteller, and the editing is very good. The production level is very good. The information itself is very good, and we on our YouTube channel we started it from just SEO tutorials, and we've built quite an audience, and we've got quite a bit of traction. We are the biggest YouTube channel about SEO. Hands down. So there's no bigger channel than we are. But we've hit the ceiling of how much we could do with this type of content, where we teach, like, I know, here's how to do keyword research. Here are 5 tips to optimize your website, yada, yada, yada. So we explored every single topic, or rather, should I say, Sam explored every single topic, because Sam is quite hands-off, luckily for me. And we were looking for ways to take it to the next level, because we already did all we could to get an audience of people who are interested in specific SEO tactics, and we need to go broader after essentially everyone who has marketer in their title, and maybe even a little bit broader, because some people are not necessarily marketers, but they may be tasked with doing this or that for the company, especially in early stage companies. So we understand we need to broaden our content, we need to appeal to broader audience, and that is very good for YouTube algorithm, because if a lot of different people react nicely to your video, YouTube would keep showing it and showing it. So if you open Ahrefs YouTube channel right now, you'll see that I know in the past 6 months our videos were generally getting around like 10,000 views per video, and lately in the past couple weeks we got pretty good with making hits, like 50,000, 100,000, 70,000. So yeah, I won't get into how it works just yet, for 2 reasons. First of all, I'm not the person doing it, so hats off to Sam. He's the mastermind behind all that. And secondly, I don't want to share kind of free tips to all our competitors just yet. We are very open with like everything we do. We eagerly share all our tactics, strategies, all our thinking, but we usually do it slightly afterwards. Whenever we have a leg up, whenever we build a body of work that it is hard to catch up with us, then we share how we did it. So yeah, that's basically it.
Yeah, smart.
Okay, I think we are ready to go into owner. So first of all, there was an interesting quote from you. There are 2 actually. The first one is you described owner as Hubspot for restaurants, which is interesting. I want to dig into that. And secondly, you said normally when I work with a startup, they're learning from me. So when I started learning from this quote unquote client, it broke my brain. I had to come aboard.
Yes.
So let's explore what broke your brain.
Yeah, it was many things. One is I'll start with some boring stuff and then some creative,
Yeah.
fun stuff. Save the best for last. So B2B company, it's a B2B SaaS company. And as anybody who has a sales team as part of their B2B SaaS go-to-market motion knows, data is important. One of the ways that companies do this today is enriching their data by using tools like Clearbit, ZoomInfo, whatever, right?
Yeah.
And that's the pretty standard playbook. The data team inside this company, I can't share too many details, has, for the same reason you just shared, has found a way to get such crazy levels of detail that you can essentially predict how much revenue that customer will, how much money they're going to make with your software. So it's not just the data enrichment so that you can do outbound sales properly. It's like predictive using a bunch of data science wizardry to see that before they even sign up with you, you already know how successful they're going to be on your platform. That broke my brain. When I saw how it worked, I'm like, that's insane.
So that's cool.
Yeah. And I've never seen anything like that before, ever. So that's cool. So I wanted to see how that worked. Then the other thing is kind of similar to what we were talking about, how startups need to be doing things a bit more aggressively and creatively than incumbents. So if you look up Owner right now, look at our YouTube page, we're kind of doing the strategy that you just described, Tim, which is kind of like Mr. Beast, Alex Hormozy style work. And that is working very well. And we have a founder who's very enthusiastic around the impact of marketing. And even in the short time they've started the YouTube page, they've broken it down to, like you said, a science. It's like, what are the first 30-second retention values of this video? Where are the drop-off points? Where should we be doing this kind of stuff? As someone who came up in content marketing with a written form, I wanted to understand the video form and different kinds of multimedia, how that's going to translate to organic social. So understanding that, I think, is something that was worth giving up my fractional freedom. Just because, like I said in that post as well, like my North Star is really like mastery and learning and understanding marketing at a wider and wider degree, and having the chance to do that at a company that is doing very well and has an interesting product is something very special.
That's very interesting. The data enrichment part is also very interesting. This is not something we're doing right now because we are so self-serve. We didn't need to kind of have any focused attention to any of the customers previously. But now as we're expanding our enterprise department, we are starting to look into that. And ZoomInfo, it's an interesting company that I only learned about just a couple years ago, and I was blown away by how big they are. Aren't they? They either have like billions.
This is what I love
revenue.
about you, Tim. It's like you're the CMO of this like big company, and there's so many things you don't know about.
Yeah.
I love that about you. It's so funny.
I keep learning all the time. So yeah, I don't remember like how exactly big they are. Is their market cap 1 billion, or are they making 1 billion in revenue? 1 billion in revenue, something like that. So yeah,
they're huge. Yes.
And I started looking into where do they get their data? Because for those who don't know, ZoomInfo is basically, I guess they do many things as of today, but one of the core things that people like about them is that whenever someone visits your website, they can show you who that is. So like CMO of Ahrefs or CMO of Owner is now visiting your website. They're like browsing your pricing page. Do you know how they do this? I dug into it, and it's not quite ethical. So basically, one of the ways how they get this data, and there, like, it's a public information. There's an article about that. So they had this. Was it like a browser plugin or maybe a free tool, basically where you can enter your own email address, kind of to give them access to your Gmail account or like to something?
Right. Yes, I remember now.
And then I think we discussed that with you.
Yeah.
And then they would give you like, I know, 5 leads or something like that. So they have some offer, but you have to connect your email account. But what they're doing is they're browsing the whole history of your email correspondence, and they're checking the email headers where you have the IP addresses, Internet Protocol, I believe it stands for, IP addresses of people who you were exchanging emails with, and they scrape the signatures. So this way, from email correspondence of, I don't know, thousands, maybe 10,000 of people, I don't know how many people gave them access to that, they were able to identify which IP addresses are kind of correlated, so to say, with what titles. And because they were able, because people change their signatures and they can recrawl, they can see if someone actually is no longer working at that company, but now they're at that company. Yeah, I'm sure that's not the only way how they get this data. So I'm sure they have lots of data partners where they just purchase this data from whoever is willing to sell it and populate their database. But yeah, knowing that a certain IP address that is visiting your website probably belongs to a given person, there are not that many ways to get this information. So yeah, it's quite interesting, and that's with all the privacy laws and such, I'm surprised that they're not in trouble with doing those kinds of things. But yeah, I was digging into it some 2 years ago. Maybe by this time they changed it, but it was quite interesting where they
Very
get
clever.
this data.
Give to get, I think, is what the model is.
Yeah, but people didn't know. You didn't know that they are going to scrape the IP addresses and the signatures of people who you communicated with.
Yeah.
So this is why that article was published in the first place, to kind of call them out on it. So yeah, like data enrichment is an interesting thing. And yeah, it seems that there are quite a few companies like ZoomInfo as of these days.
Yeah.
So I would imagine
industry.
that's not. Yeah, I would imagine that's not the only way how you can obtain this data. Maybe some.
It's why HubSpot bought Clearbit for that same reason, because people were plugging in data enrichment tools to their CRM anyway. So they're just like, why don't we just buy a data enrichment company? So they have, in theory, you have data enrichment natively within HubSpot, because it's never going away. Like, it doesn't matter what the privacy laws are. Like, outbound, everybody's saying outbound is dead. People have been saying that since forever. Cold calls are dead. Like, they are never dying. They will always be there in some form.
Speaking of HubSpot and your comparison of HubSpot to Owner, so how are they the same? How are they different from the product perspective? I'm not talking about the company. Obviously, HubSpot is a behemoth as of today. Owner is, can we say it's early stage?
The company is early stage, yes.
Yeah. So how, in terms of product, what are the similarities? What are the differences?
It's more like HubSpot is a tool that combines a lot of different software into one place. So instead of having like MailChimp, WordPress, Google Sheets as your CRM, you would just combine them all and use HubSpot. So similarly, we find that restaurant owners have the same problem. They're using Wix for their website. They use MailChimp. They use another solution for their sending SMSs. They use like DoorDash or Uber Eats for their online ordering. So it's the same problem where you're stitching together all these different tools to try to make something run. And you really have some other problem you need to be solving. So HubSpot for restaurants is really like the all-in-one aspect of the tool.
But essentially, it's kind of the same, I don't know, business model, the same, not business model, but probably very similar product to HubSpot, but tailored to restaurants.
In a way. So that's where the HubSpot comparison ends, because we actually, depending on the audience, we say it's a Shopify for restaurants or HubSpot for restaurants. HubSpot in the sense that it's all in one, but Shopify in the sense that it helps local businesses accelerate and improve their online presence. So the product is a website for restaurants that's also an online ordering platform. So for example, instead of like using Grab or instead of using Uber Eats to order your food, you would go directly to this restaurant's website or open this restaurant's website, this restaurant's app, and order from them directly. So that way you own it instead of like buying from Uber or buying from DoorDash. So depending on the audience, it's Shopify or HubSpot. HubSpot's for all-in-one. Shopify is for simplifying the online presence.
You have this video, I think, on About Us page, of owner or something where the founder is talking that he decided to start a company because his mom was struggling with her small business, and he as his friend created a technology, and then there were like more success stories. Very cool video, by the way. Was it produced in-house or was this some
in-house.
agency? In-house.
Well, in-house with freelancers. So
yeah, but I mean the ideation of that video, it was internal. The script.
it was before my time, but my understanding is it's a bit of both.
Yeah.
Yeah, the founder is super into marketing, so.
So one interesting thing is he said there, I don't remember the exact quote, but he said something along the lines of, it's for restaurants now, but we're kind of going to expand to other businesses. Is that right?
Yes.
The ultimate goal is to create a platform for lots of different types of small businesses, like, I don't know, gym owners, makeup artists, you name it.
Wow, Tim, you caught that. It's like in one sentence of the whole thing.
I would say that was one word, but kind of for a person who is trying to understand the company and its potential, it stands out immediately. It's kind of, for me, it was like mentally bolded.
Eventually we'll get there, but for now, very focused on restaurants.
So I think it is, I know, smart, cool, right, to carve out a niche for yourself and go just after restaurants only, dominate this market, and then use kind of your leverage and your reputation on this market to go into other markets.
Yeah.
I think this is very cool. And I saw something similar happened with a startup from Ukraine, which was founded by a bunch of my friends. It's called Preply.com. This is for finding tutors. I was using it for quite a few years for an English tutor. I hope I improved in the past few years. Anyway, so what they did, at first they tried to grow as a marketplace for finding tutors, and they had math tutors, they had, I don't know, science tutors, they like any kind of tutoring you need, mostly for, I don't know, school children and college kids, but they had all sorts of tutors. And then they realized that it is very hard to push their platform in all those directions. So they focused just on the English language, finding English tutors, and this is when they started growing. And so I didn't check with them in a while, but it seems that they have reached the peak. They are number one kind of service, number one marketplace for finding English tutors. And now they're going back to expanding that to, well, starting from more languages like Spanish and yada, 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 and then going back to adding mathematics tutors, physics tutors, chemistry tutors, things like that. So, but owner, they had this strategy from the start. So they didn't want to be kind of a CRM for small businesses. They figured like we're going to start with restaurants only.
Yeah, I think it's easier, quote unquote, easier in the restaurant space because the pain is so high. And there's so many of them. Like, I think it's like 500,000 restaurants in the US alone. So the total addressable market, the TAM for restaurants is so big that it would be weird to think of going after small businesses first when there's like such an obvious market with high pain that you can go after.
Let's talk about the typical customers who are signing up for owner as of today. How many of them are kind of new to this stuff? So they don't have any solution. So they have some, I don't know, shitty website that is not even updated, or maybe they just have, I don't know, a profile at Google Maps so that people would find them, or an Instagram page. So this is kind of the first, let's call it like professional software that they use to build out a proper online and digital presence. Or how many of your customers have been using something like Hubspot for a while, and now they're understanding that Hubspot kind of like too bloated for them. There's just too many bells and whistles, and they want a more focused solution from a company that just understands restaurants. So I wonder if you are seeing any of those user profiles
Yeah,
among your
I think
customers?
the main use case of why somebody would want a solution like Owner is so when you are a restaurant, your profit margins are under 10%. That's because it's a
Mm.
very competitive industry. It's very hard, food cost, inflation, blah, blah, blah. When you use a platform like DoorDash or Uber Eats or Grubhub, whatever, it's like 25 to 30% is the delivery fee. The order taking the delivery fee is 25 to 30%. And so very typically, yeah, it's crazy, right? So they're typically using that as their online ordering because they don't know any other way to do it. Like they have probably some website on Weebly or Wix or something or
Yeah.
WordPress. Then it's like, I don't know how to hook up any of this stuff to like online ordering. Somebody from Grubhub knocks on their restaurant door and says, hey, we can set this up for you. And next thing you know, they're paying 25 to 30% for their orders. It gets to a point where they're like, wait a minute, this is not making any sense. Maybe you are growing my order volume, but I'm actually not making any profits, or my profits are going down, or I'm too dependent on you now. Like if I take you out, I'm actually screwed. That is the typical person who comes and finds us. So either through our paid social or they Google us, they find us on G2 or something. Or the restaurant community is very close knit, as you can imagine, in a certain city. So then they find us and they're like, oh, I'm going to bring this all in house and I'm going to make sure that people order through me as opposed to me paying out 20, 25, 30%.
So walk me through your, I don't know, messaging and positioning. So what are some of the important things that you want to highlight to potential customers about
Yeah.
your company? What are your strengths? So I will tell a small story to give you more. Well, I think you already understand where I'm going with it, but still I think it's a relevant story because it involves you. So when I just came to Singapore, I first met Eli Schwartz, uh, who is quite famous in the SEO space. And then he introduced me to you, and you was kind enough to add me to the APEC marketers community. And then we had this meetup in Chimes, I believe, with just like 6 folks or something. But I vividly remember it because for me it was like one of the highlights of me coming to Singapore. And I remember that Eli was introducing me to everyone because he was using Ahrefs back in the day. And he kept saying that Ahrefs has amazing data. And he kept asking me, like, you crawl the whole internet, you probably need a ton of servers. And I was like, yeah, we actually have like thousands of servers or something. We have like petabytes of data. And everyone at the table was like, whoa, this is crazy. I was like, yeah, like we're spending millions on our infrastructure. And everyone was like, whoa, this is insane, dude. And like everyone was like, you should tell this to your customers because it is really impressive. And I was like, yeah, that's actually like if it impresses like people at the table who are marketers, I should probably be more vocal as a person responsible for marketing of Ahrefs. I should probably be more vocal about what it takes to collect all this data for our clients. And this is how I started pushing every narrative that I saw that was related with how much we invest in our infrastructure. And I was lucky enough to stumble upon a study where someone showed that our crawler was like second best after Google, and I was milking that cow like crazy. So yeah, I wonder like how you see, I know if it's a positioning, if it's a messaging, if it's a like USP or just an interesting piece of interesting talking point that you can mention to clients. So do you have anything of that sort at Owner?
Yeah, I just joined, so we're working on it. But there's a few key things that stand out as like narratives that people associate slash are the key differentiators. So one, if you're a restaurant owner, everybody's kind of in your ear saying, oh, you have to like build up your Instagram and build up your TikTok and post on socials. What we found is actually those are not the ways to grow your restaurant. It's actually SEO. Tim, oh, I didn't even know we could come back to SEO as a topic, you the owner.
Oh, okay.
Yes, but the number one value that restaurant owners get when they use Owner is that when people type in local SEO searches like pizza near me, best restaurant in Singapore, or I guess not Singapore, best restaurant in New York,
Yeah.
best healthy restaurant in Brooklyn, right? Their website will come up, whereas before, they had some other thing on their website is talking about their menu or talking about themselves. So our insight, one of our core insights is restaurants should be investing in search, not social. So stop listening to all those people that say you should be posting every day on your social media. We found that the data just says SEO and organic search is a way to invest. So that's one core narrative. We're the best at all the SEO stuff related to website and local SEO for your, so we're investing in technical SEO infrastructure, making sure it's fast to crawl, Every menu item has its own page, images, alt tags, whatever. We got all that, right? And the other piece that we find is important is we are everybody says this, but we actually are. We're the easiest to use. And we mean that not just like we designed with a nice UX. It's like we are actively trying to remove you from using the software to begin with because you're a restaurant owner and you actually don't care if the dashboard is nice. Like you don't want to be in the dashboard in the first place. And so we automate as many things as possible. Like we're trying to actually have an internal debate around how much should we do for the customer because they might not know that we're doing things on their behalf. So for example, we'll have like pre-built email and SMS campaigns. So you just hook up your restaurant. We actually build the restaurant with AI. You just tell us your restaurant name and we'll pull in your Google reviews, we'll pull in your menu, we'll do all the local SEO that we need. And within a couple of minutes, we can actually make your website using AI, as opposed to other companies who say that it's easy, but it's actually like they want to take a photo shoot, like schedule a photo shoot at your restaurant. They want to manually upload your menu. So I think it's those two things. One is core insight being SEO is the thing, not social. And the other being using AI technology to make it so easy that you don't even really need to interact with the software are two of the narratives that I'm developing. Again, as I'm onboarding, we're going to refine this over time.
So as you were saying this, what stood out kind of in a large, bold font for me, personally, I'm not a restaurant owner. I'm not sure if that's like, if that would be helpful, but still, that Instagram is not the way to grow your restaurant. I think that sounds pretty powerful because I do see how much effort different bars and restaurants are putting into their Instagram pages to make them beautiful and to like consistently post some updates, which I don't necessarily, as a consumer, I don't necessarily find it useful because I usually visit your Instagram page before I go to your place the first time. I'm not really interested to follow it afterwards. I'm only interested to look at the pictures of, I know how your cocktails look once. I'm not going to subscribe and like look forward to whenever you make a photo of the next cocktail you have on your menu. That's not interesting. I visit the Instagram, I check the vibe, and okay, I want to go there. I visit it, I know the vibe, and either I'm coming back or not. So I'm not sure if you're going to try it. If you do, please later let me know. But I think if you do some kind of marketing campaign, I don't know, on Facebook or Twitter, just saying in bold font, Instagram won't grow your restaurant.
Yeah.
I feel this is something that will get clicks from a lot of restaurant and bar owners.
Yes. Tim, again, it's reinforcing how good your instincts are because we uploaded a video a couple of days ago. And like the YouTube thumbnail is TikTok is a scam for restaurants, and it's one of our
nice.
Yeah, it's trending to be one of our highest performing videos. So as usual, Tim, good instincts. Thanks again.
Well, thank you. But yeah, it's as you were saying, this thing stood out for me personally. And one other thing that you didn't mention, but I think it makes a lot of sense for restaurant is I overall think this concept is not that popular or not that promoted. Even though it is very simple, it's second-hand search traffic.
Okay.
Because whenever, like, I've been in Singapore for 8 years, so I've been to a lot of places, and like my mind wants something fresh. I want some new entertainment, so I quite frequently am searching best cocktail bars in Singapore, or like I saw quite a few articles on local Singaporean websites like best bars for a secret Tinder date or something like that, kind of like hidden bars. You know, there's this trend to hide bars to make them exclusive. And those lists of recommendations, they don't belong to any website of the restaurant. Well, unless I don't know and some private equity firm owns both the restaurants and the websites that are like listing them. But overall, I think a pretty powerful marketing strategy for bars and restaurants is to get featured at those like local review websites in those lists and make sure that they have a very compelling picture. Because if the editor or the author of the article just randomly Googled some picture and took a picture that they like, that might not be the picture that you want featured, and a lot of people would see this. So I was making snap judgments about the bars I want to take my wife to just by the picture I saw there. And yeah, I was checking Instagram accounts to also make a snap judgment about that. So
Yeah.
I would think this is a pretty powerful strategy. So my question to you, like in your tool, do you have anything along those lines?
That would be intense. So I'm not even sure how you would contact and to do that at scale. I think there's a couple of our competitors who do that, but then it becomes more of a managed service, and they look more like an agency than a software platform. So we're going to always bias towards the things that are scalable and it's software, and we don't have to do a lot of like manual interface because it's not what the restaurant owners want either. So I think it'll be a while before we do something like that. We're just going to invest in the primary surface area being your own website. You're right, though.
Well,
That's totally one of the ways you would get traffic as a restaurant.
You can do something along those lines in Ahrefs if you plug the websites of your competing restaurants and find everyone who's linking to them.
Business value 3 found a way, found a way to tie it back.
So yeah, you guys can recommend us. That's the moral of the story.
Where do you use you, Tim? Every company I went in as a fractional person used Ahrefs, so that's another thing to be proud about.
Okay, thank you. Thanks a lot. So we're almost getting to the end of our conversation, and I want to talk a little bit about things like building and managing a team. And I want to start this conversation with, yet again, something you posted on LinkedIn. You're very prolific, mate. I need to catch up with you because I'm the Twitter person, and I don't even post at Twitter that often. So yeah, anyway, what you said, there are 3 types of marketers. I believe this is your own framework. It's not something you took somewhere else. So there's artist that markets through appeal to emotions. The dreamer works to inspire people. There's soldier, data-driven and focused on hard ROI results, methodical and process-driven. There's gambler, views marketing as a power log where you only need one win to erase 9 bad tries. Lots of experiments, often at scale. So 2 questions. First of all, I'm definitely interested. How would you categorize me?
Artist.
And second, how do you apply this categorization, for example, now at Oler, when you're looking at your marketing team? How does it help you to make decisions, structure a team, or run the team?
Yeah, you're clearly an artist. It's like not even close.
Emotions. Okay.
Yeah, and none of those are good or bad. It's just that.
Yeah. It's just like personality types.
Yeah,
so
just
to
whoever was. Yeah, personality types. So I think you're an artist. The way you use this as a manager is you should be able to quickly identify in your team who is an artist, a soldier, and a gambler, because there's different ways to make each of those successful. So an artist, like, they need a lot of creative freedom. They need constraints. They need the freedom to fail, because that's how you would have an artist succeed, right? An unhappy artist is one that has none of those things. Like, don't have freedom to fail. So it's a very tiny, tiny box. They don't have any resources. They can't do anything. A soldier, what do soldiers need in real life? They need a clear enemy. So they need to know what they're fighting against. They need structure and guardrails. They need like clear promotion paths. They want to see exactly what the next step is. In a gambler, you need to give them, similar to the artist, but slightly different. They need to have the ability to take risks. They need to have resources and freedom to fail. They need to have the organizational backing that if they want to try something, they're not going to be like laughed at, or it's not going to be a negative for them, because the gambler, they just need one to hit and it pays for their losses. So identifying which of your teammates fall under what kind of category allows you to set them up for success and identify. So that's one. What traits do they need? What do you need to set up for them so that they can be successful? And the other is identifying who you are in those 3 types of character traits, and recognize that you're probably going to be drawn to people who are like you, and that could be okay, but make it a conscious choice of balancing your team with different types depending on what you need to accomplish your goal. And this can fall into like different companies as well. Like Airbnb is a very artist company, whereas Uber was at the beginning a very gambler company. Like, they don't give a shit about anything. They'll do anything to get to the result. Where Airbnb very much today, the CEO is a designer. And you can see that in all the choices that they make.
Okay. Now let's talk about managing a team. So what advice do you have in terms of what's important? So even like simple questions like how many meetings do you have? What are like the objectives of these meetings? What are you trying to achieve? And why do you think you're not wasting everyone's time?
What?
You know, there's this I know stigma that meetings are usually the waste of time, and like what could be a meeting
Oh,
could be an email.
oh,
What could be an email could be like a Slack message. What could be
yeah.
a Slack message probably doesn't need to even be said. So this kind of thing. So yeah, I. Uh, so my question is like, how do you know that you're effectively managing, and like what are some things that again I will probably give my own example to also set context.
Mm,
So we realized that we were stuttering a bit with our blog content lately because we were a little too focused on the SEO element and we were trying
mm,
to cater to Google. And I also realized that I myself have a pretty vast experience with digital marketing and SEO, but I detached myself completely from our blog content, which means that I couldn't contribute my knowledge, I couldn't contribute my ideas, and the guys were operating like from their knowledge level.
mhm,
And I always was also promoting the idea that content should be created by the most experienced person in your team, the most qualified person on your team. So who's the
okay.
most qualified to talk about this should be talking about this. And I realized that I detached myself from the process. So we started doing bi-weekly content mastermind calls.
Mm,
It's just an hour with all our content people and a bunch of other people from the team. So even if you're doing community management or product marketing, you're welcome to join, listen what we're talking about, and maybe contribute your ideas.
mm,
Uh, and I like my goal with those calls is to first stress test everyone's ideas, kind of
mhm,
get to the meat of it, make sure that it's not just fluff, that we are offering something original, plus try to push the limits of what we can do. So like give people permission to spend some extra time on this. Okay, we can interview some people, or let's run this as an experiment, because otherwise they would probably focus on just writing this thing. And I would say, no, we can actually do this. We spend time like testing it. For example, again, because I love specifics, a specific example, SQ, who you know well, is now working on a post. We purchased 5 premium chat GPT prompts. Then
okay.
he dumped them down to like the least amount of information he gives ChatGPT, and then we are comparing output, which output is better, and we
Mm,
made some internal voting. People from our marketing team were trying to understand which output is better, and we're going to publish an article, something along the lines of, "Are premium prompts worth it?"
mm,
Quick spoiler, they're not. The dumbed down version performed nearly just as good. People can figure out. So yeah, I think that this is very effective because once in 2 weeks, I personally spend an hour of my time and I'm trying to push everyone to make the most of whatever they're working on. So I wonder what interesting examples of team management you have.
yeah, so if you started by saying our meeting's a waste of time, it sounded like that meeting was a great use of time. In fact,
Yeah.
you should probably do it more. Great examples of team management. Let me see here. Um, I think I
Or
will,
even fundamentals that are important, the
yeah, I
fundamental
will,
things.
yeah, that's how I was going to answer. I was going to give you some things that are typically hot takes that uh, I found to be, they should be more accepted because, yeah, let me rephrase that. There's a lot of things that are best practices that I've found that are actually should not be followed, slash every everyone I know who is like a high level operator actively breaks those rules. And the first one being like micromanagement. Like if you
Mhm.
read anything on the internet around being a boss, it's like, oh, don't micromanage. Micromanaging is so bad. And you'll always see like cartoons of people saying good boss, bad boss. The good boss is like, oh yeah, like you do whatever you want, or you have the freedom, and the bad boss like, oh yeah, do this. Like micromanagement is just a tool. I don't think it's a dirty word. I don't think there's anything wrong with micromanagement. In fact, sometimes your team needs you to micromanage them. In fact, I think you probably just gave an example of the perfect example, or the perfect time to use short feedback loops, high bandwidth communication to improve the output of a team. Some could argue that what you did was like, hey, I'm not going to step in and insert myself into a process that's working well, and that's a bad boss because you like didn't empower your team or some shit, right? But what you did was you improved the output of the team by inserting yourself, and you gave them feedback, and everybody's better as a result. So if in fact, I feel so strongly about this. If there's one thing that people could take away from this, it's not that owner is good or like fractional or whatever. It's like give yourself the permission to micromanage if it's the thing that your team needs, especially when we head into like a recession or a bad macroeconomic environment. It's important that your team gets the constraints and structure that they need in order to be successful. And sometimes that means micromanaging them. I've seen this not just in marketing, but I think it's actually more common in the sales world where it's the feedback is almost like hourly or daily. So at HubSpot, there was a sales rep who was put on a performance improvement plan, PIP, because he was not doing well, missing targets, missing quota, just didn't know what he was doing. I would listen to his sales calls and I'm like, these are terrible. And I knew it that it was terrible, and I was a marketing person. His boss micromanaged him, like was sitting next to him on the calls, shadowing him, like muting himself on the call and like whispering in his ear, like, don't say this, say that, like super micromanaging. And after the call, they would feedback, they would pause and say, hey, what you said here was good. Like high degree of almost like putting his hand up his ass and talking for him. Anyway, that rep ended up becoming one of the top performers and went to what's called President's Club, which is like the highest achievement you can get in sales. So that's just an example of micromanagement being this thing that everybody says is what only bad bosses do, but is actually an important tool that everybody should be using appropriately. There's bad ways to do it as well, but you should not just like never do it because some cartoon on the internet told you it was a bad thing. Another thing I would, yeah, please.
Yeah, I just quick. I absolutely agree, and I think it is very much important when you just hire a person in their first like half a year. You should be micromanaging them as much as you can, and they would appreciate consistent input, consistent advice, and consistent pointing out what to do good or what to do bad. Because if you don't give it to them, they might actually be anxious, like, am I doing a good job? Am I doing a bad job? Like, how am I doing? So yeah, I tend to give a lot of feedback when I just hire the person, and then I slightly letting go, and then like once in a while I would like look into it and see if I can help or not. But yeah, please go on.
Yeah, I'll say two more things. The second is this idea of it's about like team management. I actually just recently posted about this, where if you have somebody on your team where I was talking to a founder and they were like, hey, I have this head of marketing. It's not like working out amazingly, like they're okay, but I don't know whether I should send them to a training course. Like, do I sign them up for some premium thing, get them in some cohort-based community on Maven or whatever? Or like, how do I do this? And I actually reached a conclusion that they should just fire them or like find a way to manage them out or give them a smaller scope. Basically, they should not be in that seat anymore. And I think it's important for you to recognize as a manager when somebody has reached their potential and has gone as far as they're going to go given the structure that you can offer them. I'm not saying it's their fault. I'm just saying sometimes there's a mismatch in the situation and the person. And it's important for you to recognize when it's time to manage somebody out or give them a chance to find another opportunity, or when they actually could benefit from coaching. I think where that comes down is, are they good but inconsistent? If they're good but inconsistent, yes, like give them coaching, give them resources, give them structure. But if you're finding that despite feedback, they're unable to perform the task, or you just constantly feel like they're not doing well, you're not getting leverage from them anymore, the quality of work is suffering, like you should do everybody a favor and find them another opportunity or give them a much smaller scope that they can succeed at. This is something that I think is very emotionally painful for a lot of people, because sometimes you work with this person for a long time, you feel like, their career is on the line, but you're actually not doing them a favor if you prolong something where everybody's unhappy. And the last one I'll say is about always being, this advice is not for everyone, but it's worked for me, so I'll share it. One of the things that's helped me a lot in my career is I'm constantly like networking with people. I always want to be meeting new people. I always want to be chatting with folks. One of the reasons I post on LinkedIn a lot is it kind of gives me the license to cold DM a lot of people who I normally wouldn't have access to. Because, I'll cold DM someone. When you get a cold DM from someone on LinkedIn, they're going to check out your profile to see if you're like a weirdo, right? If I'm fairly active, my profile's updated, they're likely to respond. And the reason for that is there's just so many reasons to keep doing that as a manager. One is that you need a warm pool of talent always. So whenever you have a role up on your team, then you can tap somebody. Because even if that person's not available, if you trust that person, you think highly of them, they can refer somebody who's a great fit. The other is you always have this like growing Rolodex of freelancers that are vetted in agencies that are vetted. Like, because there's always going to be a time when you need a designer, or you need to replace your paid media agency, or you need a PR agency. And the last thing you want to do in those situations is like Google like best PR agency in my city, because that's just like good SEO and good performance are not always overlapping, especially when it comes to services. And it's important for you to always be understanding what the latest like best practices are. I think one of the greater tragedies that I see whenever I talk to folks who are later in their career is I can tell that they stopped networking and they stopped staying on the edge of things, and their understanding of things is from like 10 years ago. I met a lot of people who are doing the fractional CMO thing now, and they're like much later, like 15, 20 years older than me, and they're doing it now. And I'm just like, man, like you think nothing works the way you think it does. And it's hard for them because they don't know how to drive pipeline. They don't know how posting on organic social works. They don't have all their networks are other people at their level, and they don't know how to like network down in a way. So I think those are the three things that have served me well as a manager. It's like micromanagement, just friggin' do it if you need to do it and don't be shy about it. The second thing is recognizing when it's time to replace someone and not thinking of it as like their fault, but just it's a mismatch of opportunity and not being emotionally attached to that. And the third thing is always be networking with intention so that you can improve yourself, but also like it's fun to have professional friends. And so it's a better thing for everybody if you do those two things.
That's very cool and extremely useful. One last boring question, probably, about the meetings. Still, I want to talk about the meetings.
Yeah, sure.
Like, how it's not about how many do you have, but I probably more so interested in types of meetings. So again, with myself, I do one-on-ones with some people who I want to kind of regularly catch up with. Mostly they're more senior usually, or whenever we are working on some new channel or strategy and they want to be involved. But that is usually once a month. No more often than that. With occasionally, if something needs to be discussed, we might jump in once again, but usually once a month is fine. And then there's a lot of like Slack back and forth. And we do this content mastermind meeting. And I think once a quarter we would do like kind of like all hands meeting just to casually discuss stuff. And I think that's about it for me.
Yeah, there's no right or wrong answer with meetings.
Yeah.
It's ultimately a cultural thing.
Yeah.
I would say if it's working, that don't fix what's not broken.
No, but I'm interested to see like how it looks for you.
Yeah, so I would say the most common thing is one-on-ones are weekly with your people who report to you, half an hour, because it's not really for you as a manager. I mean, it is partially for you, but it's also for them to give them a space to like ask you things, get mentored by you, or to just to generally align on a lot of stuff. So typically I see it much more often. I think you said once a month. The more common thing is once a week, 30 minutes, sometimes an hour. But it also depends on a lot of cultural things. Like, are you guys always talking on Slack? Are you super aligned? You don't need that.
Yeah.
You see each other in person. So there might be less need for that. So that's one of the things I said. It's like cultural. So, but I personally like to do it half an hour once a week, just for their sake, because we can choose not to do it, but it's up to them. All hands meetings are typically monthly. If you do it quarterly and it's still working, that probably means you have a lot of other processes to make sure that everybody's aligned and everybody has the same goals, everybody's feeling motivated about what the mission is. So typically I see those monthly. In fact, at Owner, we do them weekly. But again, it's a cultural thing because we want to push fast pace and all this kind of stuff. Yes, that's right. Yeah, there's pros and cons to everything. Yes, what's up?
Is there a typical structure for your one-on-ones and all hands?
For one-on-ones, everybody has their own thing. It's like everybody has their own hamburger recipe.
So you are not asking anything. You're just there.
So the way I like to do it, I'll tell you mine. This is the baseline one-on-one structure that I use, and then I add questions or refine it over time depending on the person. So all of my one-on-ones are tailored to the person, but the baseline is, what are the top 3 things that are top of mind for you right now, personally or professionally? Because it's just useful for me to know if you're like struggling with something at home or you're looking forward to traveling next month. That affects, work and life are integrated in my view. So what are the top 3 things that you're willing to share with me that are top of mind for you? And then outside of the one-on-one, we would have aligned on what the strategies and priorities are that we're focused on. And then I would want to hear what are the things that they're working on that are either they're really excited about with regards to the macro priorities or issues that they're having that are preventing them from delivering on things that they've committed to. We can add on stuff on top of that, but typically those two things give you plenty of things to talk about in 30 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What
And
about all hands?
Yeah, the all hands, again, that's a different, every company has their own thing, but typically the way I like to see it, that I find most effective, there's an alignment on what the numbers look like. In my view, everybody should know what the revenue number is this month. Like how much money have we made this month? Because we are a business. Let's not forget about that. What are some key risks or key things that are top of mind for everyone? So is like, we're having trouble closing deals. We're having trouble with our blog content is not high quality enough. Like what is the number one thing everybody should be thinking about? Or what are the top things that are issues for the company? What are some wins? Like what are some things we should be happy about? And then what are some things to look forward to between now and the next all hands? Typically, again, that's enough of a structure to fill out an all hands and make it meaningful. Then there's some stuff you can sprinkle on top. Like one of the things I like to do, and I learned this at HubSpot, is a customer AMA within an all hands meeting. So you bring in a customer, could be a happy one, could be an unhappy one, but then that's a good chance for everyone to remember, oh, like we're not just like making software pixels move around. It's like human beings are affected by our work. So that drives a lot of empathy within each team equally, as opposed to just one team talking to customers or one person talking to customers. Everybody gets a chance to hear from a customer in their own words, what they hate about the software, what they like about it, and their experience. And it's a chance to ask them questions. So that's another nice thing to add to all hands.
That is super cool. We never tried it, but I can see how it could be interesting and useful to bring a customer to your meeting. I guess it would
they
change
feel great.
probably.
They're so happy to be in. Yeah, like oh my god, like they won't churn. So that's a nice benefit.
Yeah, I would guess that would change the dynamic of the meeting, because obviously like some things are not interested to the customer, or some things you don't want to bring up while having the customer on the call. But still, I think it's a very cool exercise to do. We should definitely try doing it and see how it works.
Yeah, you do it at the beginning of the call, so that's how you solve that problem.
What do you mean? You do it with them like for 15 to 20 minutes, and then
like thank you for your time, and then
Okay.
They're busy. They got other shit to do, so they're happy.
Yeah. Of course. Whoa, that's actually super interesting piece.
That was a huge game changer when we did that at HubSpot, because it's like, oh, like this is what the thing that we've seen in a deck about what their top ICP pain points are, but I've heard it from them in their language. You can see their facial expression, just like changes the way you think about stuff.
Yeah, this is so cool. I like that. How many direct reports do you have that you do those like weekly one-on-ones, and how many people on your team for the all hands?
For the all hands, it's all hands, so it's everyone.
You mean the entire company?
Yeah, that's what all hands means, Tim.
I thought all hands of the marketing department.
Yeah, I guess. That is a marketing meeting. There's a marketing all hands, but an all hands is an all hands, yeah.
So you also have marketing all hands, and you have like entire company all hands?
At owner now, no, because we're too small. But at HubSpot, for sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Again, meetings are a cultural thing.
How many people in your marketing team as of right now?
2.
Okay. What was the maximum people on your marketing team during
the
scope of your career?
The
people on your marketing team.
Yeah, 8.
8. Okay.
Which is like too many. I think the optimal number is probably like 5. Because
you're talking about direct reports.
Direct reports.
But the entire size of the team.
Yeah.
So if you had different. Okay.
Direct reports is 8.
But the entire marketing team.
That was the entire marketing team.
8 people.
Yes.
And you had one-on-ones with all of them.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, I think we can wrap it up.
Cool.
This was very cool. Thank you for your time.
Of course, man. Thanks for having me.